I'm Natalie Standridge, founder and franchisor of Casa de Corazon Intercultural Early Learning. Welcome to my podcast, Decades of Disruption. Here, I'll share my journey, the decades of stories and convictions that have driven my choice to not only contribute to, but also to disrupt the early childhood education industry. But these stories aren't only my own. I'll be joined by the people whose lives have been changed by what I've created and whose mere existence have been a constant source of inspiration to me too. If you're ready to challenge the status quo and build something truly unique and impactful, you're in the right place. Disruption has a purpose, and we're here to talk about it. Hi, welcome to this very special episode of the Decades of Disruption podcast. Today, I'm introducing an intermittent series called Where Are They Now? Because I've been running an early childhood education program for over 2 decades, many of the kids that have been enrolled with me are growing up. And who better to start with than the very first enrolled child in my program ever, the child that I created the program for, my own daughter, Kylie Lopez. This will be an intimate and authentic conversation where we'll explore our journey together, her journey and our connection, and how we've grown together over the years. Thank you for joining us in this deeply personal space. Hi, Kylie. Welcome to the Decades of Disruption podcast.
Hi, Mom. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you so much for coming. This is going to be super fun. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too.
So I have a few questions for you today, kind of different ones, a little bit of a different conversation than we're usually used to having. Ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Awesome. My first question is about a year ago. You were a very young college graduate. You graduated quite young at the age of 21, and you decided to start a new life in Denver, Colorado, which is kind of a long way from home and where you literally knew nobody. So I'm curious. We know that most young adults are not quite that adventurous. What do you think it is that gives you the courage to do hard things?
I definitely feel like I grew up in an environment that prepped me to be self-sufficient and independent. I grew up with the example of if you want anything bad enough, you can do it. Like so much is possible in this life, and you exemplified that for me growing up. So I always felt super supported by you to be able to go and chase my dreams. That's never been an issue between us. So I remember when I told you I wanted to move to a different state, and I finally felt like I was in a place to do that. And you were fully supportive, and you supported me going out there, and enough to the point where I was able to find my own apartment and find a job, and you stayed in contact. And I have just felt like you gave me the courage to be able to do that for myself. So I'm just super grateful for you basically providing that opportunity for me. And I wanted to spread my wings and grow up and experience what life is like outside of Minnesota. And a lot of that power came within. Yes, a lot of young people don't do that. I have a lot of friends that tell me, oh my gosh, I would never be able to leave my home state. And it's one of the best things I've ever done.
Oh, well, thank you for the credit that you gave me. I wasn't expecting that much. I think you do things that maybe even I wouldn't have done at your age, like renting a U-Haul trailer and towing your own car and literally driving all of your worldly possessions to Denver to move out there by yourself and getting a hotel room so that you'd be safe and driving it in 2 separate days, and then just like handling the moving everything and returning the U-Haul is just like a lot. And I think that it's very powerhouse of you. So it was super exciting.
Yes, I did do that. I just love doing things that people don't normally do. And then I get to tell that story, and then everyone's super impressed. And I just love just having that power to be able to do it. Yeah, I drove a 10-foot U-Haul with my car hitched behind it and drove for 13 hours over 2 days. Yes.
Yeah.
So
I love that in you. And I just really appreciate what you said about following your dreams. I have followed my dreams very fully in my young and regular adulthood. And I think that I've really wanted that for you and for Colton to be able to follow your dreams as well. So happy that you are. So I think that you and I both waver between seeing the glass half empty and seeing the glass half full. And we've done this throughout our lives. What are the choices, habits, and actions that you take now that help you keep a positive perspective on life?
I think living a life with a positive perspective is so much better. So I definitely have struggled growing up by seeing the glass half empty. I definitely had an altered negative perspective on life, which just made my overall surroundings that much worse, right? Even though something bad is happening, there can always be a positive perspective to it. So I've done a lot of work and I'm still working on just constantly looking for that positive thing that could be happening from whatever situation. Bad things are going to happen, but the outcome that you choose, like you can choose how you react, and that is going to affect and make a world of a difference on what you're going to do with that piece of information. So I pretty much just take anything that hits me, and yes, I can be sad and feel my emotions. You can feel negative emotions. That's super healthy. Absolutely do that. But also finding a way to lift myself up in the moment and just being able to have a positive projection instead of negative, because other people see your reactions too, and that has a big impact on how you interact with people.
Absolutely. I love how you figured out that your perspective is the main thing that you can control.
Yeah.
And that you've sort of taught me about it's okay to feel negative emotions, but then we figure it out afterwards and we lift ourselves up and we see the positive in even the hardest of times in life.
Yeah. Super good to feel all the hard emotions, no bottling up emotions, but also remind yourself that there's positives. Glass half full.
So great. It's such a choice.
Yes.
I love that. So I'm remembering when you were little and you would sometimes ask me why I worked so much. Now that you understand what it means to have responsibilities and goals and a career, how do you see my relationship with work when you were growing up with your new perspective as an adult?
Well, to give some context, when I was young, I felt that you were working a lot and you weren't necessarily giving me all the attention, even though like you felt like you were. So we had a bit of a divide there. And now, as I've grown up to be an adult, I am seeing the glass half full and I'm seeing all of the positive outcomes that are coming from everything that you've done. You've built such a successful career. Like, I admire you and I strive to basically do what you did. Like, I definitely have learned that personally I want to have a more balanced life, which you have also achieved now. But definitely when you were starting your career, your world was your work. But it was centered around me. Like the original, yeah, it's so ironic because the original story is you started it for me. And now that I'm an adult, I can see that. Like, you've built a career and now you are able to fully support me as I was a child, and like now I'm growing up and you have all these like connections, and again, like what I was saying earlier, you're able to show me that anything that I want is possible.
Amazing. Well, thank you for that perspective. And yeah, it's been quite a journey.
Yeah. No, it has. With starting any business, there's bumps in the road. It's hard. You showed me it takes grit and work, and that's just part of it. But I think as an adult, I'm realizing like work is a big part of life. And just as I'm starting my adulthood, I'm figuring out the balance and the dedication it takes to have a career. And it's hard.
Yeah.
But you got to just push through and make the best out of it. And I think you've done a really good job at dedicating to work, but now as you have built your work, you now have a full, well-rounded life.
Thank you. I do feel that that's something that I've learned in the past few years to be better at.
Definitely.
So in our family, you kind of referenced this, we've faced some challenges. We've also faced some pretty big growth moments. Tell me what you learned about failure and resistance by watching me face my own struggles as a mother and an entrepreneur.
I would say in the entrepreneur aspect, I've learned that part of being successful is failure.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't strive to achieve their career goals because it's scary.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you are bound to hit some walls, but if you push through, you can get something so amazing.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people should take the leaps because the outcome is so beneficial. That's the same way I view growth. Like, growth is hard, but the options are stay where you're at and be unhappy, or push through the growth, which is also hard, but there's a possibility of like a really great outcome. And now you own Casa and you help so many families and you're able to do what you love and you are bicultural, and just like all of those things wouldn't be possible without perseverance. And then on the mother aspect, having a family is hard.
Yeah.
Like, there are so many possibilities of things that can happen. And again, you can't control what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, no, this is a tricky question.
Yeah.
Because I personally am not a mother, so I don't exactly know like what it feels like.
Yeah.
But I have definitely witnessed you, and I think you have so much power and you've done so much growth as a mother. And even though you get hit with walls, like you still have created this like great life for us.
Thank you. Yeah, it is very parallel, actually. People talk about the entrepreneurial leap, which is kind of this analogy of jumping off the edge of a cliff where you have no idea what's going to happen and where you're going to land or how. It's very similar to parenting. You know, when you decide to have a baby, you don't have any clue what it's going to be like to be a parent for the rest of your life until you do it yourself. And it is a risk and it is very scary and it comes with a fair share of challenges, but I feel so lucky and so rewarded and blessed to have you and Colton as my kids. It's been just the best blessing of my life to parent you guys.
Yeah, I'm grateful for you.
Yay. Okay, so speaking of your childhood, you've lived in different homes from me, at least part-time, since 7th grade. And you've lived in different cities and different states since college. But even when I'm not living with you, I always strive to be present for you. So I'm wondering if there's a moment where you felt that I was totally there for you, and maybe a different one where you wished I had been.
I'm going to start with the wish you had been. I think my freshman year of college was a super pivotal point for us.
It was.
I was a teenager. I graduated high school at 17. I went to college at age 17, and everyone is usually 18.
Yeah.
And I wanted to leave the nest. I was ready to spread my wings, and I was a sassy teenager for sure.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to have my own life. But I think that created a divide. And then we were struggling to figure out what communication style we were going to have. That was the first time we weren't living together. And I spent a majority of my life with you.
Mm-hmm.
So not only was I wanting to separate myself from home because it was my first opportunity to like be out on my own, but you also were in the shoes of my first child is leaving the nest and not knowing how to navigate that. Like, again, that's part of motherhood. You don't experience something until it happens.
Right.
So you were going through your own grieving process. I was going through my independent process. And our communication style kind of faded.
Yeah.
And we had a very good conversation about it after my freshman year.
Yeah.
And our communication has significantly improved.
Yeah.
But
it's so great.
Yeah. I think I wish that, like, it's kind of like a reading your mind situation. Yeah. So we both had our flaws in the situation. But my initial instinct was, I wish you spoke to me more my freshman year.
Yeah. Like you had this apparent, I need to differentiate, I need to separate wall up, but you really wanted me to reach out more, which is totally valid.
Exactly. So like
perfect sense, especially for a 17-year-old.
Yeah, I was putting up my wall, but still wanted my mom. So like
Yeah.
that was obviously hard to read. Yep. Like teenagers act one way, but want another thing without saying it. So it was a whole debacle. So that was definitely one time that I was like,
thank you for the grace in your description of that. But I totally can't be held accountable.
No, we were both going through our own things. So yeah, I understand it now after the fact. A time where you were really there for me was when I moved to Denver. Like that is such a pivotal point. Like I don't think I would have had the courage to do that without your support. Like you created this base for me where I had the privilege and the opportunity to do that. I think like, yes, it takes a lot of courage from someone to be able to do that, but a lot of people don't have the support, which makes it harder.
Yep.
And I had that from you. And
thank you.
You were consistently talking to me. Like I moved out there and I had to find a job. I had to find friends and peers and a partner and just like create a life from the ground up because I didn't know anyone that lived in Denver.
Yeah, and it wasn't easy. It felt several months.
Yes, it took me 3 months.
Yeah.
So I moved there maybe about 4 months. I moved there in September, and then January I found my job, I found friends, and I found my partner.
Yeah.
And that has been my circle, and I've had that for almost a year now. It's December. It's going to be a year of like my consistent life there.
Amazing.
And I've created this whole circle, and you have been there the whole time.
But you did it.
Yeah.
You did all that work.
Yeah.
You're awesome.
Thanks.
So another question for you. When I stop and think, it's actually quite appalling how much our lives have evolved over the years since you were born. And I mentioned you lived in various homes throughout your childhood, but also your young adulthood. So I'm curious what the word home means to you now.
This is such an interesting question.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of perspectives on it.
Are you sure?
And I have actually, before I directly answer the question, I recently have had a revelation. I think because we moved around so much as I grew up, I struggled to stay in one place.
Yeah.
And then when I was in college, I was moving every year too.
Yeah.
And since I've lived in Denver, I've lived in 2 different apartments. So my life has constantly been go, 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 go. And I think that's why I love traveling, is because I want to be in a new environment.
Yeah.
So I struggle to have a home and stay in one place.
Yeah.
But that is something that I am challenging myself for in my adulthood, is I want to create a home base with myself, and for myself.
Yeah.
Like,
good for you.
I think it's important. Like, I love having my own space. I am enjoying like having my own apartment and just being able to sit still.
Yeah.
And it's mine. Like,
that's awesome.
I'm able to do that. But at the same time, I'm like, where to next?
Yeah.
And I think that comes from moving around so much as a child.
Totally.
So my long-term vision is I stay put somewhere, I have a home base for myself, but I also have the adventure of traveling periodically, which is what you do. Like, I love how much you travel. I want to do that consistently.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah, as I grow up, and that is one of my 2025 goals. Like, I wonder if just travel more. And like, I've been traveling my whole life. That's another part of it. Like, not only were we moving, we were constantly going to different countries and visiting family and just exploring new places, which I have just grown to love that. So
yeah, to really value. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's so great. That's really good perspective, how you've sort of figured that out and how it affected you, and also that you can make your own choices today.
Yeah.
Awesome. So speaking of traveling together, I feel like when we do travel together, we connect in a really unique way. What have you discovered about me in those moments of traveling together that you might not have known otherwise?
Well, when you travel with someone, you learn a lot about the person.
Yeah.
It's super, like, any person that I have a close relationship with, I want to travel with, because you're not comfortable like you are in your home environment. So quirks can come out and like not your normal personality can come out. And I am very guilty of that as well. Sometimes I get more irritable because I'm in a new environment and want to figure it out.
Yeah.
About you though, specifically, I feel like when we're traveling, we get to have deep talks. And I learn a lot more about you. Like when we're in Minnesota, we're usually with family and we're not getting that deep one-to-one time.
Yeah.
And when we travel, like I love taking trips with just you because it's one-on-one, just like this. Like I'm able to ask you questions without judgment or someone else hearing. And it's just like I get to learn things about you that other people may not know, and I get to give you perspective on those things that like it's just us. Yeah, so we can just like talk about all the things, and I get that with you with travel. I think that's my favorite part.
That's my favorite part too. It's like, so we have such a unique bond and we're able to really go deep when we travel together and without the regular day-to-day outside world.
Exactly.
Awesome. So here's a fun one. You and your brother have very, very distinct personalities. So I'm curious from your perspective, what do you think each of you integrated from your upbringing and our family dynamics?
Even though my brother and I grew up in the exact same households, we are polar opposite. I don't know how that happened, but we are very different. I like to say, like, because we're different ages and because he's younger, he has a different impact than me. And because I was older, I have a different impact, which is a whole psychological thing.
Totally.
Like usually children who go through parents with a divorce at a younger age have a deeper outcome from it.
Yeah.
So we both handled our lives in different ways.
Yeah.
I think Colton, I think one of his top values is family.
Yeah.
Which that is a big takeaway he took. Like, he talks about how he wants a family in the future and wants children and like wants to create his own home and like things that he will do, things that he won't do. And I am a little opposite.
Yeah.
I am a little scared of family because I'm like, oh no, there's so many outcomes I can have.
Right. What if I mess it up?
So that's like my perfectionist coming out, which I'm sure I will get over that as I'm an adult. I'm still young, but that's just like my outcome that I've come to conclusions with.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just handles life in a completely different way than I do. I am more type A. He's more type B. That's okay. There's pros and cons to both. Like, we're still learning to understand each other. And yeah, I mean, we talk about it all the time. And amazing, yes, how different we are.
Yeah, I'm always a little bit shocked. So I'm curious your perspective on how that happened. But yeah, you're right. You were very different ages. So your experience of your childhood was different than each other's.
Yeah, and he was in the house longer than I was, so that definitely had some impact. And just like, I was the older one, so I always felt like I was the caretaker, and that has definitely shown up in my adulthood. And just taking care of people comes naturally to me. Like, that's what I like to do in my work.
Yeah.
And that's how I grew up. So,
yeah, that's awesome. So speaking of differences, I sometimes wonder if my choices as a mother shaped the way you view motherhood and even family. Do you think your perspective on those topics is similar to mine or completely different?
I talk about generational trauma a lot.
Yeah.
And it's super interesting to see like how your mother raised you, how you're raising me, and the different perspectives I would have. There are multiple things that come up where I'm like, I'm just like my mom, which is not a bad thing.
Yeah, I've heard you say that more and more in the last couple of years.
Yes, I've been embracing it. And I definitely, as a teenager, was like, I'm nothing like mom.
Yeah.
But as I'm an adult, I'm like, why do I not want to be like mom?
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. So I think a huge difference would be choosing the correct life partner.
Yeah.
Who you choose to love and embrace to your life has an impact on everything. Yeah. And that is something that I hold very close to my heart and I'm very intentional about. And I've learned so much. Like, I don't regret the households and the partners and father figure that I grew up with. Like, it has taught me so much, and I'm able to now in my adulthood, like, recognize what an abusive and manipulative relationship is. And I don't want that for myself. And I think I'm doing a really good job at not embracing that in my adult life. Like, I already lived through it as a child, and I get to not have it present in my adulthood. And I'm really good at like setting boundaries. And
Wow.
when it comes to having a partner, that can involve having children. And like, I get nervous about having children because I don't want to mess it up. But like, I need to embrace that that's bound to happen. You can't control everything. You can't always control your environment. So learning to let go.
Wow.
Yeah. So just like, when it comes to motherhood, and I'm training myself this as I'm turning into an adult, but not holding so tight and controlling your environment, because you can't control everything.
Right.
And I struggle with that because I wanted to control my environment so much when I was a child.
Of course.
Because it would go out of control. So I was just like, I have to control everything, and it just makes you so tense. So you just gotta let it go, and what will happen, what will happen.
And also make good choices.
Yes, make good choices. Yes.
Yeah.
Obviously. Like, I can make good choices and just act as it comes and make a positive outcome for me.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your openness and transparency with that answer in such a deeply personal question. Yeah, I learned the hard way, and I'm so glad that you know at such a young age that who you choose as a life partner is the most important decision you can possibly make in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I give you grace. Like, you didn't know. You grew up in such a cherished, like, home, and your parents are still together, and, like, they have a beautiful love story, and you got to grow up in one single house, and they're still in that house, and, like,
Pretty amazing.
they did all these, like, great things, and you have all these great childhood memories. So, like, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, you had to learn the hard way because you didn't have any other example. You thought that's just the way it is.
I just assumed it would be the same.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
thank you. Your independence has always been something I'm proud of, and also something that challenges me. You studied psychology, and they say the main challenges we have with our kids are the things that we see in them that we scrutinize within ourselves, right? So I want to support and also challenge your fierce independence. In your ideal world now, how often would we talk and text and see each other?
Like I mentioned earlier, this is something that we've worked on and we've yapped about. And obviously, living in a different state, that's a whole different ballgame. Like, I'm not able to walk upstairs and have coffee with you, like we used to. So
Yeah.
I honestly love what we have now. Like, we talk every week, and I love that.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like I need to be talking to you constantly all day, every day. Like, we both have our own lives. We're both busy. Yeah, like, we're living in two different states and are pursuing different careers, and that's just part of it. But yeah, I like texting you updates. I like calling you in the evenings to like tell you about what I'm doing or what I just did. And we use Snapchat, so I'm able to send you random photos, and like you send me pictures of like our dog, and you tell me what's up in your life. And I think we've done a lot of work and growth into being able to maintain constant yet balanced communication.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm really happy with what we have right now too.
Yeah.
It's been super great.
Mm-hmm.
Yay. So during your teenage years, you've referenced earlier in the conversation that we struggled a little bit. When I called my parents for advice, they really weren't much help. My dad would say slowly what he watched as my sister and I grew up. He would say, well, there is a mother-daughter thing. And I'm like, that's not helpful. What does that mean? So if you could change one thing about our relationship across your life up until now, what would it be and why?
I think I was a very vocal, opinionated teenager.
Oh, yeah. You were.
Definitely.
A toddler, teenager, all of your childhood, yeah.
That's true. That's true. You would show me videos of me being a toddler, and I knew what I wanted, and it was happening. So I'm definitely very decisive. Although I can admit that sometimes I am wrong.
Okay.
I always thought I was right as a teenager.
Yeah.
There were some things where I was definitely right and you didn't believe me.
That's true.
So I think if I could change anything was that even though I am young, and this is something I've embraced because I tend to be the youngest one in all of my circles. That happened in school because I was young. And I think because I was used to that, that has mirrored into my adult life. All of my peers that I've made in Denver are older than me. And that's just what I gravitate towards more. So just because I'm younger doesn't mean I don't have a valid point or opinion.
I hear you.
Yes.
Yes. And I remember times where at the time I couldn't see what you were saying and you were 100% right.
Yeah. So I think just like not only being able to embrace in myself that I have a good opinion, but also like wishing that I could have gotten through to you enough to be able to alter certain outcomes.
100%. Oh, I wish that too.
Yeah.
And you eventually did.
Yes.
You eventually did it through to me on the subjects that maybe it took me a little too long.
I always get through to you at some point.
Yes, absolutely. So I know this is kind of a tough one, that your father hasn't always been a constant presence in your life. And I understand that this has left its mark, if you will. If he were listening to this conversation, what message would you share from your heart? And what do you think he could learn from the person that you are now?
I have done so much personal development.
Yes, you have.
Obviously, any child wants both of their parents present. I chose to have that not be a possibility. I chose that I wanted a much healthier life than what I grew up with. And if he were listening, I would say, thank you. Like, we were not meant to live this life together. And that's okay. And I didn't want that to continue to damage my beautiful life that I want to create. So I'm very grateful for him and all of the outcomes. Like, I have had such great outcomes from my life due to everything that happened growing up. But yeah, we weren't meant to have a long life together. And I'm grateful for the first 16 years of my life that you were there, but that's just the way it happened. And that's okay.
You've done so much work to get to that point. And I'm just really, really proud of you, Kylie, because gratitude is the best thing. It's the most healing emotion that you can have.
Yeah. I'm very grateful, and I've done a lot of forgiving, and I don't hold a grudge. I don't view it in a tainted way. I never talk negatively about my past. Like, I'm viewing the glass half full.
Yeah.
And yeah, I have so many great skills, and I'm so independent, and I am living such a great life.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't be possible without gaining the resilience that I have due to all the things that happened.
You're so amazing, Kylie.
Thank you.
And I'm grateful too. So now switching gears to my favorite question of the whole episode, which may or may not hold me highly accountable for some things. Since you started making your own decisions, I've felt that every step you take reflects both what you've learned from me and what you've chosen to unlearn. So what would you say is the most valuable lesson you kept and integrated, and what is the most important thing that you unlearned?
This is a question that kind of trips me up. When I'm in the moment, like, things come up where I'm like, oh, this is something I need to unlearn. This is the generational trauma.
Yeah.
And there are things where I'm like, oh, I'm so glad she did it that way. I guess one lesson that I've learned from you is family is important. And you have done so much work to show how important like your kids are.
Yeah.
You obviously dove into work when we were young, but now as we're growing into adults, like you show how much you value that and you prioritize like spending time with us and traveling now to see me and all that stuff. So I'm definitely learning like how important, or have learned how important connections with people are. Like you're super good at networking and talking to people, and that's something that I have implemented into my life and strive to be, because I'm still learning, I'm still growing up. I'm learning how to connect with people, and that is something that you have very thoroughly and well shown.
Thank you.
Yeah. Unlearn?
Yeah.
Hard part of the question. That is a hard part. Ooh, this is a good one. Okay. Learning to put myself first.
Oh, yep.
As I've grown up, I have noticed that I tend to put other needs above mine. And I'm choosing or doing things that I don't necessarily want to do. Like, they're not bad things, you know, like how I spend my time. Like,
Right.
I am letting other people choose for me instead of going within and thinking about, well, what do I want to do? What do I want to eat? The simple questions, what do I value in the moment? And I am struggling with that a little bit. Like, when I'm alone, I'm super decisive. I'm super good at knowing what I want to do. But when it comes to interacting with other people, I grew up watching you put others above yourself. And I think that's something you're working on too. And you have definitely improved it dramatically since my childhood. But that's something I'm seeing in myself, and I'm trying to catch it early.
Yeah.
And be like, this is what I want. Like, even though other people are involved, I still have the opportunity to choose for myself.
That's so awesome. That's a super important thing to learn to do as a young person, and especially as a woman.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, sort of in the similar avenue that we're on right now, I want to close this part by asking you this. If right now you could appreciate one thing about the way I parent you, and at the same time point out something you wish I had done differently, what would those two things be?
Well, to start off with the positive, again, I love how supportive you are. Like, you are a single parent, and that is hard. So you have had to become the mom and the dad, and you have done it beautifully.
Thank you. That's very kind.
Yeah. There's bumps in the road, but like, if I were in your shoes, I don't know how well I would handle it. Like, I can't criticize you for something that I haven't done, you know? Like, you're taking life day by day. We all are. So I'm just grateful for you always being there and eventually, like, choosing what's best for us, even though sometimes it's hard. Like, you have provided so many things for me, even though it's only been you. And I'm super grateful for that. You have just been there for me in the hard times and celebrated my achievements, and like, just, you've been really good.
Well, you've been pretty great to parent. I mean, obviously, I love and adore little kids. I've dedicated my career to them, right?
Right.
They're the best. And parenting you as a small child was the most unique gift. And being there, you know, around when you were little was so, so fun. But parenting you as an adult is literally the greatest joy of my entire life. I love the relationship that we have now. And I'm so grateful for the work that you've done, the work that I've done, so that we can have the healthy, amazing communication and connection that we have today.
Yeah, no, I admire the growth you've done. Like, we both came from damaged situations.
Yeah.
And we have completely altered our life. And like, it got to a pivotal point where maybe we wouldn't have a good relationship. And you were like, no, that's not happening. That's not an option.
Yeah.
And you showed me how important growth is and that it's possible. So I took after you pretty much. I think that's why I love growth so much. I just have seen the world of a difference it can make.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad you did it. Like, I'm so happy, like, of the growth you've done and the relationship we've created. We were not this close when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
Like, we have dramatically improved. And I think it's so nice. And I'm so grateful that I get to have a close relationship with at least one of my parents.
Yes, me too. Yeah. And I'm so grateful for you and everything. And I think self-work and growth and all those things is hard, like you said, but you choose your hard. Yeah, it's so worth it on the other side.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here today and for having this amazing conversation. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, I'm so glad you invited me. This series is so cool. So I'm glad I could be the first of this series.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Well, thanks everybody for joining us on this more vulnerable than I thought it was going to be, very connected, very special episode of the podcast. Kylie has been the most amazing guest, just sharing from her heart. I hope that this inspires some or many of you to think more deeply about the relationships that you have and the power of personal growth.